Begin. Hello, where did Logan go?
Ah,
Why is he gone? Oh, because I need this window to stay maximized. Hold on a second, I have to move
oh, there I
Logan.
am.
I gotta move tiny Logan to my other monitor. And then make him big. And then pull up Streamlabs again, because he lives behind Streamlabs.
It's true. That is where I live.
I gotta make you the biggest I can make you. There we go. You're as large as can be. Larger than ever on my new monitors.
Perfect.
Maximum large. Hi, Ben. Alright, so let's start this off right, because this will be the first one I actually upload to YouTube for perpetuity. Probably the only one, since it's like its own little one-off thing. But anyway, welcome to Wizarding Wednesday, but it's Tuesday, and also if you're watching this in archive, it could be whatever day you want it to be. We're here. By we, I mean I, Solo Crusader, or Dakota, or Coda, or hey you over there, whatever you want to call me. And this one over here, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hey, I am Raviska, or probably Logan.
Yeah, I will be referring to him solely as Logan because I've known that name for a bit longer. And we're here to discuss the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition monster manual. Today, specifically, we're here to discuss Mindflayers. Yeah, they get their very own episode. Not every monster gets that.
Pretty
Believe it or
special.
not. Typically, we do them by letter, but Mindflayers, there's a whole lot of information about them. We could have done one episode that was just slave races to Mindflayers, and we basically have, honestly. So, but Mindflayers got a lot going on, so we decided to cut out a chunk of time just to talk about them. Boy, I don't even know where to begin. I suppose let's... Oh, you have something?
Oh, no, I was just going to suggest with sort of their theme, maybe.
Yeah, no, their theme is H.R. Geiger meets no, basically just H.R. Geiger, yeah, or Geiger, however you want to pronounce it. The guy that did Aliens? Yeah, it's that. Why? Well,
Yeah.
they got tentacle faces. They're aliens. They eat brains. They got weird mouth parts. And they're bad.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, they really enjoy enslaving entire races of other creatures.
Yeah.
And that's sort of their defining characteristic as a civilization, I think.
I can't tell if they're really good at it or really bad at it, because there are a lot of races that were enslaved by them, and now the only races it says are influenced by them are just shit tier races like the Grimlocks.
And humans. Ugh.
Yeah, but not the entire human race.
No, yeah, but just some of them.
Too many.
Yeah, it seems like in certain situations they're incredibly good at it, the whole subjugation thing, and then in other situations they kind of mess it up.
From just an overarching lore perspective, Mindflayers have a weird kind of dichotomy going on.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It says, when it starts talking about them in Volo's guide, which has a lot more expanded information about them. I think it says this in the monster manual too, but they are basically a race on the edge of extinction now, but they used to be like this vast empire that spanned all sorts of worlds and even planes of existence.
Yeah.
And then, as far as I can tell, the reason they collapsed was because one of their enslaved races, the Gith, decided they didn't like it anymore.
So what strikes me as really strange about that, just in general, is if they populated multiple different planets, maybe just the ones we know about were kind of the jobbers that got cut off from the rest of the Mind Flayer community. Maybe we're only seeing the worst of the worst, and after the Gith rebelled, the rest of the Mind Flayers are like, you know what, you guys deal with this problem, we're going to go continue doing our interplanetary thing.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, this one...
We only know about the ones that Volo talks about in the guide, which is specifically the stuff on... what planet does... is it Toril? That, all the official current stuff takes place on? I think it is, but I could be wrong.
Well, it says in the Culture of Fugitives section that only the Mind Flayers that had infiltrated the worlds of the material plane survived, and their safety was short-lived.
Yeah, so...
Which makes it seem like they are on many worlds on the material plane, but even those are quite endangered.
Yeah, it's really weird because we're talking about something on a scale that we've not seen in the monster manual before, which is not interplanar, but interplanetary.
Yeah, I don't know if that's mentioned anywhere else.
Yeah, so that's very strange just due to the fact that what scale are we really talking here? Because all we know about, like, lore-wise, is the Mind Flayers on the Prime Material Plane. There could be something vastly different going on, or not Prime Material Plane, but on Toril, I believe is the name of their Earth in the Prime Material Plane. But there are other planets. Now, assuming, because like Greyhawk takes place on its own little planetoid, in its own crystal sphere or whatever, and then, well, like Ravnica, what's the one with the robots? I'm blanking on it.
Oh, the one with the
Eberron.
Yeah, that's probably right. I don't know.
Yes, because it's the Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron. Eberron's its own little crystal sphere, which are like planetoids. Or the lore gets really weird, especially in 5th edition, because there's no lore about it in 5th edition because Spelljammer's not a thing. Spelljammer is the D&D version of space travel. But these guys are the only even allusion to that. So yeah, we don't know a lot about them as a whole. All we can really talk about are the small enclaves of them on Prime Material, specifically on Toril. That being said, let's look over. I guess let's start with. Yeah, let's do like their culture and civilization before we get into too much about their anatomy, because their anatomy's, in my opinion, the most interesting part. They were a great multiverse-spanning super race that enslaved, I'm gonna guess, hundreds of races. It only specifically talks about a few, but they had fully subjugated, and in some cases even, like, specifically bred races of slaves, which is kind of what happened to the Gith and why the Gith have psionic abilities, because they were specifically almost evolved by the Mind Flayers. But they were this super race, and then event happens, and suddenly, in one day, specifically says in the Monster Manual, I believe, or in Volo's Guide to Monsters, I'm sorry, in the lore section, see if I can get you a page number, that the whole, like, rebellion happened in a single day.
The last sentence of I think it's the 3rd or 4th paragraph, says the Gith rose up, slaughtered their masters, and destroyed almost all traces of the Illithid's astral domains in less than a year. Was
it less than a year? Okay. I thought it was a day, but it might have been a year.
Well,
even then,
the big rebellion may have taken place in a single day, but to destroy almost all traces in the astral domains
here's
in
also,
less than a year is still very impressive.
Here's also where things get really weird. Time doesn't move in the astral planes, so what constitutes a year there?
Good question.
Maybe on the Prime material it was a millennia.
Yeah.
But
Who's to say?
yeah, time is convoluted. But yeah, so they got wrecked by these Gith, who just rebelled, and then it doesn't mention any of the other slave races rebelling, which also the Gith are the only ones that it mentions specifically that have access to the astral. So, and if that's where the rebellion took place, it might have just been the Gith, not the Kutoa and Grimlock and Quoth.
Yeah, I would guess, just knowing what we know about the Kuatoa, which is that's the guy that just does this.
Yeah.
I would guess that the Gith were playing the main role in the overthrowing of the overlords.
You don't think the Kutoa really brought much heat?
I think they would have been cheering on whoever was winning.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm playing both sides, so they always come out on top.
Yeah, they're cheerful little guys.
They're the great. Do you have that picture? I think you should pull that picture up, just real quick, because I love it so much.
There he is.
There he is. Look at that little guy.
He's loving it.
Yeah.
He's living his best
so
life.
So excited. That picture makes me happy every time I see it.
I really gotta. As soon as this channel gets to the point I can put on emotes, he's becoming an emote. For sure.
That's great. He's just so hype.
So yeah, these guys were like the biggest big, and then they got rebelled upon and cut out. So they made their primary home in the Astral Sea, and then they got pushed out of there by the Gith. So the only thing that was left was all their little enclaves in the prime material plane. So, and those didn't really have communication among each other because the Astral was their hub. So the Gith kind of cut them off from each other.
Yeah, and that's sort of where they are now.
Yes.
But yes, so their civilization currently just sort of revolves around them living in secret, pretty much, because the Gith still constantly hunt them.
Oh yeah, the Gith are not too happy with the whole being enslaved as a race thing.
Yeah, they shockingly took that pretty hard, and they just, for whatever reason, can't get over it. So that's sort of their whole thing.
There is one kind of interesting little paragraph that it doesn't expound upon that says, hey, maybe this great rebellion wasn't actually a thing. Page 71 of Volo's Guide to Monsters. A few skeptics suggest the entire narrative of the Gith victory rings false. How could a slave race overthrow the power of the Mindflayers? Were there signs of a great struggle? Perhaps the Gith didn't actually win. Perhaps instead the Mindflayers moved themselves and their works into the future, to avoid being overrun. This theory would explain why Mindflayers' disappearance and the absence of any ruins from their empire, because they left nothing behind. So they think maybe the Mindflayers just took their shit and went space. Like going to a different place in space didn't work. Maybe going to a different place in time will work, and they just shunted themselves through time.
Yep.
Which is absolutely crazy, but
I mean, I don't know. That feels like a semantics. Like, well, you didn't win because I quit playing because they left to avoid being overrun.
Yes, being
wiped out.
But that would explain why there's nothing left,
that's true.
Kind of thing.
That's true.
Because, I guess we'll get into it later. Mindflayers sort of have their own culture and sort of not.
Yep.
Because it's all determined by the Elder Brain, and that kind of culture is determined by what brains they eat. So it's kind of weird.
We kind of go, I guess, in order. So, like, there's, of this at least for their cultures. So, like, the next part of that is how important brains are to them.
Yeah, they love them.
They love them. They eat them like actual, food, but they mostly feed on their psionic energy.
But
to sustain themselves.
To extract the psionic energy, they have to physically eat the brain.
Yeah.
So, here's what's weird. The weirdest thing. They eat the brains. They craft, as we've seen, intellect devourers and other creatures from the brains. They use the brains to breed. See the problem here? Brains aren't so easy to come by unnoticed. And they need them for basically everything they do. I read somewhere that an adult Mind Flayer needs to eat 1 brain per month to maintain physique, and if it misses, it can go 3 months before it starts to suffer from starvation. So at a bare minimum, that's 4 brains per year per Mind Flayer. If an enclave has, we'll say a low number, like 10 members, that's still 40 brains a year just disappearing from an area? Like, bare minimum?
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah, they talk about it a little bit, where it's, where is it? It talks about in there, like, strategic principles. Mm-hmm. Which is their way of kind of going around subjugating a race or a particular civilization. They can either subvert the leaders and just have the leaders control the population to their ends, or they completely dominate them all and turn them all into thralls and stuff like that, or they... What was the other one?
It's a combination.
Oh, they do
of the two.
they just destroy a large portion of them with like plague or whatever.
Yeah, but they have to. Well, they have to subjugate a population because they need a breeding population of a fair amount to be able to cull that many members a year from the population.
Yeah.
So,
And I think we mentioned this before, but Mind Flayers don't reproduce.
Yeah.
They take humanoids and they put little parasites in their brain.
They undergo a process called seramorphosis.
Yeah, and they turn a normal human, for instance, into a Mind Flayer.
Yeah, we'll go over that in more detail in just a moment when we get into their physiology.
Yeah.
But Mind Flayers are parasites. Well, for a few reasons, but one, they need to constantly be living off of the psionic energy of other creatures. Also, it means the creatures they eat the brains from have to have some sort of cognizance. Like, animal brains aren't going to cut it. And specifically, they go for humanoid brains. Kutoa are considered mature at 5 years old, thus the selective breeding for fast maturity. That's true. Maybe they kept Kuatoa for food, although it specifically says...
It says that they find Kuatoa brain to be absolutely delicious.
Yes, that they were bred as like treats, almost.
Yes, they're very delicious, and the reason that they don't keep them as thralls anymore is because, due to the Mind Flayer's influence on them, the entire race is batshit crazy, and so they're very hard to control because they're so insane.
Yeah,
but their brains are still very tasty, and they eat them raw like sashimi.
They've become insane, and we read earlier, if enough Kuatoa believe in something, they can cause a psionic manifestation of that thing, which is probably part of the process. Yeah, he's just manifesting his little heart out.
He's hyping so hard.
You would want a large population of them for food, but if you get a large enough population of them for that, they can summon their god. So that could be problematic. Yeah, Wa, it's very similar. Actually, anyone who's played Final Fantasy XIV, it's incredibly similar to the Beast Tribes and their Primals. You get enough of the Beast Tribe members together and have them pray to their Primal hard enough, they summon their god to that plane, or at least a manifestation of it. It's very similar to that. So it's pretty cool. But that's the reason Mind Flayers can't just keep a massive Kuatoa as food, because they could accidentally, cataclysm themselves.
Yeah. You gotta keep just a small amount in the pantry just for snacks after a hard day.
Not to
Just a
mention
tasty
that,
little treat.
not to mention that physically Kuato are pretty useless in most aspects. So using them for other
Yeah.
things besides food isn't like
I mean,
really.
their main use is hype.
Yeah, hype and food.
Hype and
They
food.
have they are for those two things alone. So mind flayers have to only 3 feet tall, nice and compact. Oh, that's another interesting thing, and we'll get into that when we get into biology. Kuatoa can't be turned into mind flayers due to their size and physiology, so they can only be used for food. So yeah, mind flayers will subjugate a populace. They actually gain some of the culture of the brains they eat, or culture from the creatures of the brains they eat, because they get just kind of, when they consume them, sporadic memory fragments of those. So if a group of mind flayers has been eating off elves for long enough, they begin to adapt some elvish customs or way of dress and stuff. Just kind of through osmosis, instead of having their own real culture. Also, they're all controlled by one big brain, Futurama style, and they're all mentally linked to this hub. Mind flayers are very much like they are connected to the Wi-Fi that is the Elder Brain. And the Elder Brain projects its Wi-Fi for 5 miles in every direction. As long as they're within that Wi-Fi range, they're on an open network, and all the Mind Flayers are connected to each other, so all the Mind Flayers can instantly exchange information with each other. It is the Forgotten Realms 5G.
Yeah, they have a very, I don't know, like beehive setup almost.
Yeah.
It's like there's the queen that makes all the decision, and all the rest of them are just cogs in the machine.
No, it's funny because Mind Flayers have their own personalities and goals and things they strive for. Like, they have their own minds, and obviously, they're very intelligent. That being said, they all are, in their own way, slaves to the whim of whatever the Elder Brain wants, and the Elder Brain also has its own, like, sentience and own goals and ways to accomplish tasks.
Yeah, and something interesting that I noticed in that the Elder Brain sort of section is that it mentions it has I think it says it has a perfect memory of like Illithid history.
Yeah, which is weird.
Perfect recollection of its race's history. So it's sort of like aboleths in that way. Like an aboleth always knows exactly what happened to every aboleth.
So that's weird because in that same part it says that they're jealous of aboleth's memories. They're jealous of the aboleth's ability to have a perfect memory.
Huh. Well, I guess maybe this says an Elder Brain has perfect recollection of its race's history. So maybe that's all that they have a perfect recollection of.
I don't... Well, it might be their race's history, but by that I think... Because it says the way an Elder Brain works is it gains all of the memories and knowledge of any brain it's consumed, and they consume, whenever a Mind Flayer dies, its brain is scooped out and fed to the Elder Brain, and its mind becomes part of that, like a little, I guess like a little hard drive plugged into the brain, and at any point in time the Elder Brain can ping that hard drive and pull the information off of it. Or more like its own separate computer, because that mind can still think on its own. It just doesn't have a body to do anything with. And so I guess it has perfect recollection of any memory that those things have, where aboleths just have a perfect recollection in general, like without any sort of outside influence.
Yeah.
Because it's weird, it says they have perfect memory, and then a page later it's like they're jealous of Aboleth's perfect memory. It's like,
But
what?
they're super jealous of perfect memory.
I,
It seems, though, that they are pretty jealous of everything, because they're jealous of the Lithorids, and they don't like...
well, Lithorid are just fancy mind flayers.
Hmm.
So.
But they're not. They're not under the Elder Brain's control.
Yes.
And they start a new colony.
So.
Which the Elder Brain is like, fucking
Yeah.
upstart, but also is like, well, we do need to start new colonies, so I guess we'll allow it.
Lithorids are like Elder Brain seeds. They go and plant themselves and become a new Elder Brain. And we'll get into them more specifically when we pull up their stat block. Let's go ahead and just hit their general biology for a minute, and then we can start going over the actual like individual. So the life cycle of a Mind Flayer. Adult Mind Flayer lays eggs in a brine pit, which is the pool the Elder Brain hangs out in. Those little eggs hatch into tadpoles. Gross little tadpole creatures. Those things swim around. The Elder Brain eats some of them. They eat each other. It's just a fucking mosh pit of madness in there. Occasionally they're like fed a brain whenever they go to feed the Elder Brain, and they might get a little bit of that, but it's just... they're not taken care of particularly well. After 10 years, a tadpole reaches maturity to the point it can be used to make a Mind Flayer. At that point, the tadpole's scooped from the pool and inserted into the nose, eyes, whatever cavity in the head of a humanoid between 5 and 6 feet in height and between 120 and 240 pounds, I think it has to be, for the Ceramorphosis to complete. Because if the creature is too small, the tadpole eats the brain too quickly and the body dies. And if the creature's too large, the tadpole can't eat the brain quickly enough and the body and the tadpole die. So it has to fall within a certain range for them to be viable, which is why like gnomes and in earlier editions there's actually a specific variant of Mind Flayer that was put in a gnome and it was all fucked up because of this process. But that's why gnomes, halflings, and small races aren't transformed. They specifically search for, and why also like giants and any other creature like that. Also, it seems the creature for the metamorphosis to work needs to be humanoid in shape, because the process transforms the body into this that you see before you, leaving behind no traces of what the former body was, meaning elf, human, orc, dwarf, all are going to come out looking like this, with no, ones derived from elves aren't thinner, ones derived from dwarves aren't shorter. They all come out looking the same kind of goopy.
Pretty impressive, because you'd think it would take a lot more energy to convert like a dwarf into this than it would a human or an elf.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, also because elves have Fey ancestry, but that doesn't seem to affect it, despite the fact that these guys have a hatred of magic, and elves are just innately magical. It doesn't seem to affect it, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, they turn into a full-grown Mind Flayer like that. Then occasionally, one that is one of those tadpoles is inserted, and the creature, instead of becoming a regular Mind Flayer, becomes an Utholid? Eartholid? What is it? How's it spelled?
Lithorid.
Lithorid, which are bigger, more tentacly Mind Flayers. We'll show you that when we get into their stat blocks.
They're large.
Yes, they're bigger and just better versions of Mind Flayers. They are the Chad of Mind Flayers. And then those guys will reach coming of age, whatever, take part of the enclave that they belong to, move 100 plus miles away, a minimum of 100 miles it says. Then they'll make their own lair, they'll make their own brine pit, they will pop their brain out of their head and put it in the brine pit, and then over the course of who knows how long, that brain turns into another Elder Brain, and they begin controlling that enclave that way. So that's kind of the overall life cycle of a Mind Flayer. They go from egg to tadpole to Mind Flayer that lays eggs. Then also you have the offshoot of the I keep fucking forgetting how to pronounce that thing's name.
Lithorid.
Lithorid. Yeah, Lithorid. Which then turns into an Elder Brain. No, there's something that I think is incredibly interesting about this is what happens when a tadpole gets a host. So these creatures aren't actually the same thing I would consider as the tadpoles. This is a metamorphosis of a tadpole and a host. There is a creature that exists that is what happens when just a tadpole grows up on its own without a host. And they are the most reviled creature by Mindflayers imaginable. Like, the thought of them is considered a terrible taboo. And we'll get into those
what are they
two.
Called?
Neolithid. They are...
Neo?
Yeah, Neothelid. It's funny because they're not actually even in the Mindflayer section of the book. They're a few pages later.
Yeah.
And they are what I consider a true
boy.
Mind Flayer. Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
And we'll get into talking about those because those are really dope. But let's go ahead and go over the regular Mind Flayer stat block real quick. See what we're working with. They wear a breastplate. I mean,
Why not?
fair. They're pretty soft and squishy. It makes
They do have soft, shitty bodies.
Yes.
It says that somewhere in this.
Yeah, they're
the
not particularly physically adept. They use their psionics for a lot of things. Proficiency in mental saving throws, Arcana, Deception, Insight, Perception. Oh, also, sorry, one more thing I want to get into about these guys before we go into their stat block. They can't talk normally. Well, they can in one way, that's but they are all telepathic, so they all project their thoughts telepathically. They can mimic human speech by taking one of their tentacles, jamming it down their throat, and curling it back up and using it like a tongue. And it says the process is, I forget the exact words, but it's unpleasant for the creatures.
I believe
to
it
see.
says it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable for them and anyone who's watching it happen. So they don't like to do that.
The sentence is, the process is uncomfortable to the Mind Flayer, can be disquieting for other creatures to witness,
Yeah.
and results in a sound that is often harrowing to the ear.
Yeah, so I mean,
It's a pretty great way to describe that.
yeah, they're typically telepathic, but they got lots of proficiency, 120-foot dark vision, telepathy to 120 feet, magic resistance. So Mind Flayers they're kind of shiny and goopy. They have a mucus that they extrude that kind of dissipates magic. It doesn't say that in this book. This is an earlier edition thing. But the mucus that they're covered in kind of it is a catalyst for psionic influence, and it dissipates like actual magical influence, which is why they have magical resistance innately. Of course, this is from an earlier edition. It could be different in 5th edition. This is just from something earlier. So they have innate spellcasting, but it's not actual magic, it's psionics, meaning this can't be counterspelled and doesn't require components. It can just do these things. At will, it can detect thoughts and levitate. To be fair, it can detect your thoughts really, really well for a minute, one time. And then your brain's gone. And once a day, it can dominate monster or plane shift only itself. It's got some attacks. It's got a Tentacle Attack with its face. On hit, it deals 2d10 plus 4 psychic damage. So not physical damage. You're taking a psychic damage from this creature. And then if you're medium or smaller, you're automatically grappled and have to succeed a DC 15 intelligence save or be stunned until the grapple ends. One of the few creatures in the game with an intelligence save, and every intelligence save in the game is absolutely critical you make, because intelligence saves are real bad if you fail them.
Yeah, that's always funny. Just in the game of D&D is that so many people take intelligence as their dump stat, because why wouldn't you? For a lot of characters, like it almost never comes up.
There's one class that uses it as an ability.
Yeah, But then when it does come up,
Ooh, does it come
oh
up?
boy,
Because
it's a big one.
we saw the
'cause-
intellect devours, where low intellect just means it takes the place of your brain.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody. Everyone's like, oh yeah, our dumb barbarian. What a silly character he is. Right up until his brain gets destroyed
Yeah.
in the first round of combat.
Yeah. So once it's got you grappled, it can extract brain. So this only works on an incapacitated humanoid grappled by the Mind Flayer, so you have to be incapacitated first. But it's 10d10 piercing damage, and if it reduces the target to 0, the Mind Flayer kills the target by extracting and devouring its brain. Revivify is not going to help there. That brain's gone. But it can only use it on incapacitated targets. Thank goodness it only can grapple you. And oh wait, this can incapacitate everyone in a 60-foot cone. Mind Blast. On a 5 or 6 recharge, the Mind Flayer magically emits. But it's not magic though, because they don't do magic. The Mind Flayer psionically emits psychic energy in a 60-foot cone. Each creature has to succeed an intelligence saving throw or take 48 plus 4 psychic damage and be stunned for 1 minute. Just so you know, the subtext of stunned also reads incapacitated. A creature can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, so it can stun you, walk up, guaranteed grapple you, next turn, guaranteed try to eat your brain.
Yeah, and as I just said, a lot of characters take intelligence as their dump stat, or at least as a not high stat. And most characters don't have a high intelligence modifier to begin with, and then if you don't have proficiency in intelligence saving throws, which
is rogues,
again not
wizards.
many people, druids I think have it for some reason.
Okay, so like rogues, wizards, and druids, and other than that.
Yeah. If and DC 15 isn't like a guaranteed save, even if you have like a plus, 8.
It a plus 5 on your save, it's still a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, and plus 5 is probably unlikely for most of your party.
Yeah. Especially, so CR7, you don't even get your second stat boost till level 8.
Yeah.
So, even if you dumped your first stat buff into intelligence, it's not a good, Like, even for an intelligence-based character, even for a wizard, this is not guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if this Mind Blast hits, let's say, 3 of your 6 party, I know 6 is a pretty large party, but that's what we work with most of the time. If 3 people are stunned and take 22 damage, and the next turn, if this thing is still alive, one person is taking 10d10 damage?
Well, they have to grab with their tentacles first.
Oh, okay, so it's like a 3 turn.
Yes, but...
Or 2 turn if they tentacle grab and then extract brain, I guess.
Yeah, so the thing is, 1, Mind Flayers live in a conclave, so you're probably not going to fight one at a time. 2, they sometimes have intellect devours with them, which can incapacitate.
True.
They have other ways to incapacitate. And honestly, a good Mind Flayer would go ahead and put the levels into Monk for Stunning Strike.
Yeah, obviously, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The best Mind Flayer would just take the memories of an already high-level monk and not even have to worry about it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Mind Flayer's pretty tough, and yeah, I mean, so yeah, in theory, but if you're fighting more than one of these, which is the most likely scenario, your party should be much higher than level 7. To be fair, but if they're fighting, what did they call them? The rogue illithids?
Yeah, so
renegade illithids.
Some like break off specifically, and other times the Elder Brain sends them out on tasks that are beyond its reach. So occasionally you'll encounter a single Mind Flayer, but not nearly as often as like a conclave.
Yeah. Yeah, they're scary. I mean, not many level 7 characters have enough hit points to survive
Yeah, 10d10's
50,
55.
55, 70, like 92 damage on average. That's a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, that's over 3 turns, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're incapacitated for 2 of those turns, it doesn't do you a lot of
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
They're
I
interesting.
just realized something.
Would you like to share that with the class?
Well, if you're if you're using Extract Brain, you're making an attack roll at a stunned creature within 5 feet of you. That's a critical hit.
Is it? Done. Attack rolls advantage. Incapacitated. I think you have to be unconscious.
Is it unconscious?
Okay,
Okay, thank God.
Yeah.
I was going to say otherwise Extract Brain always critically hits, which is 20d10
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, because stunned is
It's
incapacitated.
paralyzed I'm thinking of. Paralyzed gives
Automatically
automatic
fails. Strength and dex. Attack rolls have advantage, and then incapacitated is just can't take actions or
Yes,
reactions.
I'm sorry. It's paralyzed, not stunned, that gives you automatic crits.
Yeah, paralyzed is because that makes you unconscious. Where's
I
was
think
that? There it
it's... Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I don't have
Oh,
it.
paralyzed, incapacitated, automatically fails. Attack rolls have advantage, and any attack hits is a critical hit if
Okay.
within 5 feet. Yeah,
So,
yeah, that one's pretty nuts.
yeah. Luckily, these guys don't cast magic, so they can't hold person you and then just 20d10 damage your face.
Yeah, yeah. Unconscious and paralyzed are essentially the same, except I think the only difference is unconscious you fall prone.
Yeah,
If you're paralyzed, you're just
stuck in place.
you just stay in your position that you were in.
Yeah. So yeah, these guys are real nasty. A 60-foot cone of 48 plus 4 damage and potential stun on an int save is pretty nasty. No,
Yeah, especially like we were saying, if you happen to be the level that would be appropriate for CR7.
here's something else. Variant Mind Flayers. Some Mind Flayers do use magic. It's not that they're incapable of using magic. It's just they don't. So if you encounter they're typically shunned. So if you encounter a single Mind Flayer out by themselves, there's a decent chance he's out by himself because he's been cast off because he learned to do magic. And then they add some extra spells to this. Although to be fair, none of those spells are as bad as them eating your brain.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm confused. At least I still have a brain.
Sleep would be bad because then you just eat your brain in your sleep.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
But none of these other ones are nearly, that bad. So let's go ahead and hop over to some Mind Flayer variant stuff. Why is this not? Aha! These lovely little guys.
Yeah.
This is an Alhoon, which is a Mind Flayer Lich. Because Mind Flayers that learn how to do magic are cast off by their society, and Mind Flayers consider themselves immortal because their brain goes into the Elder Brain, and they live forever that way. Well, if you're cast off because you learn magic, you lose that, so you're no longer immortal. So Alhoons turn to Lichdom for their immortality. So they take.
Is it the Alhoon that they are a Lich already? Because there's the variant Mind Flayer Lich, a Lithorid, which I think is a very cool name. It's like
This
Grigori.
this is not true
Lineage.
Lichdom. Yeah, I guess that's true. This is not true Lichdom.
I didn't read their blurb.
Yeah, I didn't
so
read
I wasn't
this
sure
whole
what
thing.
the thing was about it. I just saw the variant is an Elithalich, which is a CR22 by the way, compared to a CR10.
Yeah, so this is I guess a Mind Flayer seeking Lichdom that is not
Yeah,
quite
I'm
got
assuming the main difference is that the Lich has actually like is undead then. I don't
there.
know if
This
I
guy's
see this
undead,
anywhere.
but a Lich I
Oh,
think has
he is.
succeeded
Oh,
in.
he is. Yeah. Hot damn.
Because well, a Lich has a phylactery. These things have something called a parapet of mind trapping. So instead of their soul being stored, it's just like their thoughts are stored in this thing, and they also have to continue doing a ritual to
Oh,
extend their life.
gotcha.
So it's not true lichdom,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's fairly close. They have all your basic immunities you see among undead. Uh, they have true sight, pretty potent. You know, high mental stats like they had before.
Mm. Oh yeah, and the parapet of mind trapping lasts only so long as the life of the living victim selected. Thus, an Alhoun who brought a 200-year-old elf to be sacrificed looks forward to a much longer existence than one that sacrificed a 30-year-old person.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty nuts.
the act of making the parapet or imbuing it requires a ritual where you sacrifice a humanoid, and then however many years of life that humanoid had left are basically that becomes your life, and you can renew that um, by doing the ritual again. So
Man,
you grab
just
an old
need
man and it doesn't add much time to you, but you grab a young elf and it adds hundreds of years to your lifespan.
Yeah. I'd be seeking out like arc druids and stuff, because they age at what is it, a tenth of the rate.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think a level 10 undead's gonna take an archer on.
Hey, but you gotta work smarter, not harder, because you don't want to be doing this ritual every like 25 years.
That's true.
Or if you just get toddlers all the time, every like 2 years.
That's true.
It'd be really easy, but I mean, every 2 years, what a hassle.
So they have detect thoughts and levitate, just like Mindflayers do. They have dominate monster and plane shift. I misread this at first and thought it was dominate monster self only, and I'm like, that is the worst possible spell you could have.
Self only.
Apparently,
I have dominated myself.
there's a distinction there. Plane shift self only, just like Mind Flayers. They still have their magic resistance. They are a 12th level spellcaster, and they have a bunch of spells, including a 1 cast of Disintegrate a day. They have turn resistance. They can't eat your brain though. They're not into brains anymore. They've got Chilling Grasp, which is a melee spell attack for 3d6 cold damage, which honestly, as opposed to having your brain eaten, not that bad. And then they have their Mind Blast, which is exactly the same as the Mind Flayers, except for it's 1 DC higher.
Yeah.
But I mean, they can't eat your brain, so honestly, I'll take that.
Yeah, but the Lithorid can eat your brain.
Where does it say? Oh yeah, there is a variant in the manual. I don't know if I can pull it up.
In Volos, they're right next to each other. That's why I keep referencing them.
Yes,
'Cause
I
they're literally
can't
just
pull it
side by
up
side.
again on this thing. This site doesn't have it. But the Lithorid is what happens when a Mind Flayer becomes an actual Lich instead of an Alhoun. They are way stronger. They have all the regular Mind Flayer tricks. Their Extract Brain still does the same amount of damage, despite the fact they're over twice the challenge rating. And their Mind Blast only deals 1d8 plus 1 more damage. So they're not that much stronger.
Well, they get the Lich's stat block. It says, so they get all their spells and stuff too.
Yeah.
I think this is just listing the.
Its Mind Flayer stuff is not that much stronger, but it
yeah,
gets
yeah.
the Lich stuff on top of it in legendary actions.
It can Mind Blast as a legendary action though, which is pretty.
Yeah, it costs all 3 legendary actions, but it can. It can also extract brain, and it can Tentacles and extract brain as legendary actions. So, if it Mind Blasts on its turn, it can Tentacles and extract brain before the guy gets another turn. So,
Yeah.
pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
It's just adding tentacles to an already existing Lich, which is it's not.
Yeah, and it's plus 12 to hit for these guys, which is pretty tough. And yeah, and then they extract brain, also plus 12 to hit.
All right, let's take a look at an Elder
Yikes.
Brian. This is what happens when a Brian gets too old.
Damn you, Brian.
It's all goopy. No, an Elder Brain is kind of what it sounds like. It's a big brain. It typically lives in the center of a Mind Flayer colony in the brine pool, which is where all the eggs are kept too. And it is, if you've watched Futurama and you know about the big brains, it's kind of that. It's just, it says specifically here it has an unhindered ego. It consumes brains just like the Mind Flayers, but since it can't get out and move, it has to have Mind Flayers bring it brains. It's a network hub for all the Mind Flayers within a 5-mile radius of it. And also it can infiltrate the minds of non-Mind Flayers and do some kind of gnarly stuff to them too. But yeah, this is just, it's the Mind Flayer's boss. That being said, being just a brain, it has an armor class of 10, because it's just a brain. It's 210
Just
hit
a brain.
points, because it's a thick brain. 5-foot speed, 10-foot swim speed. They don't get around much.
They don't move a ton.
Yeah, good mental saves. To be fair, it has +5 con. It's a sturdy brain.
Yeah, beefy boy.
In fact, it even has a dex of 10, meaning it's as dexterous as the average man, despite the fact it is a, like, 400-pound mass of gray matter. It understands common, deep speech, and undercommon, but can't speak, and it has telepathy within 5 miles. So, it is aware of the presence of creatures within 5 miles of it that have an intelligence of 4 or higher. I think a cat and dog have like intelligence 3, so anything smarter than a cat or dog, it knows that it's within 5 miles. It knows the distance and direction of the creature, as well as its intelligence score, but can't tell anything else about it. If the creature is protected by mind blank or non-detection, it can't see him. If you're like Fry from Futurama and you are very, very dumb, or protected by a magic ward. Yeah. Has some innate spellcasting. It can cast Detect Thoughts, which seems unnecessary, but it can. Dominate Monster, Plane Shift. I love that it can plane shift to another plane, but once it gets to the other plane, it just is a fucking giant massive brain just sitting on the ground somewhere because it's not in its brine pool. It can
Hopefully it
levitate.
teleports itself to a watery plane. Otherwise, it's going to take twice as long to get anywhere.
Yeah. It can levitate, but the thing about levitate is things have to be propelled by something. They can't... It's not fly. So it can move up and down 20 feet, but that's about it. Someone's got to tow this thing places, which is why...
Can you pull me, please?
Which is why when a hive is moved, it's not... You don't drag an Elder Brain someplace. It's the... God damn it.
Lithorid, I think.
Lithorid. I'm getting my T's and H's
Or
all backwards.
Lithorid, probably. I don't know. There's an I in there, though.
Yeah.
Makes it tough.
Yeah, so one of those gets planted instead of dragging one of these guys around. They have legendary resistances, which they're going to need because, I mean, they're not making any dex saves. It's a +2 strength. This baffles me. This thing is... Its stats are remarkably good for it just being a big shitty mass of gray matter.
Yeah.
It's a telepathic hub, so it can maintain telepathic conversation with up to 10 creatures at a time. And it can let those creatures talk to each other while connected. It's just an operator. It can connect 2 minds within its range. Up to 10. Honestly, 10 seems like a low number for this kind of thing. Maybe it's just because our adventuring party's 6, so it's like us and then the brain and then like 3 other people. Seems not very many, but it's got some attacks. Oh, excuse me. +7 to hit, a reach of 30 feet, which isn't bad because I mean it has to be because it's sure as hell not getting up and moving anywhere. 48 +2 bludgeoning damage. That's a significant amount of bludgeoning damage from this thing. It's a for +7 to hit because it only has a +1 strength, +2 strength. Yeah, it does. You know, that's a pretty significant amount of damage. If the creature's huge or smaller, it's grappled with an escape DC of 15 and takes an additional 1d8 +5 psychic damage at the start of each of its turns until the grapple ends. The Elder Brain can have up to 4 targets grappled at a time. That being said, if it grapples a huge creature with it only being large, it's going to get fucking towed right out of that pool and then just be flopping around on the ground. Has Mind Blast, which is just a more powerful version of the Mindflayers. It's DC 18, 5d10 +5 instead of 4d8 +4. So more powerful there. Psychic Link, it can so it has to target an incapacitated creature. It can perceive with this creature sense trait, so an incapacitated creature within 5 miles of it. And it can establish a psychic link. Until the link ends, the Elder Brain can perceive everything the target senses. The target becomes aware that something is linked once it's no longer incapacitated, and the Elder Brain can terminate the link at any time. The target can use an action to try to break the link. 18 charisma saving throw, not intelligence. On a successful save, the target takes 3d6 psychic damage and the link ends. If the target and the Elder Brain are more than... the link also ends if the target and Elder Brain are more than 5 miles apart, with no consequence. The Elder Brain can form psychic links with up to 10 creatures at a time. An interesting thing about this, incapacitated includes sleeping. If you're unconscious, you're incapacitated. So it can get you while you're sleeping. If you're within 5 miles of it, so... I know I need to stop yawning. I've had a coffee today and energy drinks. I don't know why I'm so sleepy. I'm even staying hydrated. Alright. But, so it can link to your mind. It can see what you see. That's dangerous, but the more dangerous part is what it can do once it's linked to you with its legendary actions. When you're fighting, it can make 3 legendary actions, blah blah. One of them, break concentration. A creature within 120 feet, which has a psychic link, the Elder Brain can break the creature's concentration on a spell it casts, and the creature takes 1d4 psychic damage per level of spell.
Damn.
Yeah, it can just break your concentration immediately. No save, just the spell you were doing, you're not doing anymore, and you take damage. And Psychic Pulse, target creature within 120 feet, which has a psychic link. Enemies of the Elder Brain within 10 feet of that creature take 3d6 psychic damage. So it can pick a person it's tethered to, and then everyone within 10 feet of that person takes psychic damage. Everyone of its choice, I guess. So...
Curious. So yeah, like you said, they can link with something that just falls asleep 5 miles within range, but once they wake up, they know that
there's something. Yeah.
Well, that's when you're reading the psychic link thing, like that's what I was curious about, because it says, you know, it can sense it or whatever, but then immediately you're like, well, what are you gonna do about it? You know, it's like, oh, yeah. But then you can have an action, you can take an action to attempt to break the link.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious, because obviously, like, if your players were doing this and for some reason they went to sleep within 5 miles of an Elder Brain. I'm curious how easy it would be for an Elder Brain to reestablish this psychic link with the party. Because presumably your players, as soon as they wake up and you're like, oh, you feel something psychically linked to you, and they're going to be like, oh, can I do anything about that? And then if you say, oh yeah, you can take an action to try to break the link, because it doesn't say you can only attempt it so many times, does it?
No, and there's no downside to failing. When you succeed, you take damage, but you don't take any damage on a failure.
And I mean, I can't imagine our players not being like, I'm going to do this until it works.
Yeah. So, well, I actually ran a modified version of this with you guys, and kind of how I got around this was I described you could sense this link, but nobody specifically said, well, I'm going to try to do X, Y, or Z about it. I didn't issue the option of, but you can use an action to try to break it. I left that up to you guys to try to leave it to the player to come up with a solution. Which eventually you guys did once you were confronting the creature. You're like, oh shit, this thing has a link. I need to do something about that. And then you were like, okay, I want to try to push this thing out of my head, and then I let you make the roll on that. Also, I would say, if I were running this against a party that would just sit there and be like, I wake up feeling something weird, I'm just going to do thing until I stop. I would say if you fail the save, you can't do it again for another X amount of hours. Or something.
That's reasonable.
Just because otherwise this effect means nothing. Because you're like, oh, you wake up and feel like you're being watched. Like, alright, I'm just going to fucking focus on it until I don't, and then go about my day.
Get out of my head!
Yeah, and then nothing changes. Or make it
sitting in a circle screaming.
Make you take the damage on a failure instead of success, so you can focus until you pass out.
Yeah. Ow. Ow. Ow.
Yeah. So, but also, whether you're linked or not, creatures within 5 miles of the Elder Brain feel as if they're being followed even when they're not. So you always, even when you're not linked, you have that kind of
healthy bit of paranoia.
Yeah. Any creature with the Elder Brain has formed a link hears faint, incomprehensible whispers in the deepest recesses of its mind. The psychic detritus consists of Elder Brain's stray thoughts commingled with those of other creatures to which it's linked. So that's kind of funny. You could, if you were linked with multiple of your companions were linked, you could occasionally hear some of their thoughts if they were just like unfocused, and that could cause some fun interactions in your party.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys are only encountered in a Mindflayer like lair. You could have one under a city or something that the Mindflayers have subjugated. It doesn't have to be some far off cavern somewhere. But it's always going to be... You're never going to just fight an Elder Brain. You're not going to stumble across an Elder Brain in the wild.
Holy shit.
Just slogging its way through the woods.
We were just taking a nice walk in this beautiful forest, and all of a sudden, this monstrosity appeared.
Big sloppy brain started dragging its ass across the land. No, that doesn't happen.
It's unlikely, to say the least.
Alright, so next we have the Lithorid. There we go, I said it.
Hey, buddy. Ooh, they're masterminds.
Lithorid. They are more tentacly Mindflayers. Like, literally, they just have more tentacles. And more of them.
And a very slim figure.
Yes. And this is what happens when a particularly strong tadpole gets into a host. They also have more fingers. Wait a second. In that video we watched earlier, the Mindflayers only had 4 fingers. Mindflayers only have 4 fingers. These guys have a whole extra finger.
Wait a minute.
Holy
That's where all
shit.
their power comes from.
They
It's
got
the
a
power
whole
finger.
extra finger. We can't say power finger on stream. We will be banned from Twitch.
Oh shit, my bad.
Yeah, so...
Show me your hands, Mind Flayer. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Somebody better get fired over that discrepancy. uh,
This is where all my power comes from.
yep.
My ring finger.
So, what do they got going on? Well, they're just a more powerful Mind Flayer. They're just bigger and better. They have telepathy out to 2 miles, which is better than the 120 feet of a standard Mind Flayer. These guys can also work as like psychic hubs. They have the creature sense, but only out to 2 miles because they are a like prepubescent version of the Elder Brain. Oh, weird. They have more spells available to them than an Elder Brain. A lot. You know, I can understand why Elder Brains don't have like eye bite because they don't have any eyes. But like Feeble Mind, Mass Suggestion, Telekinesis, like that seems like things the Elder Brain should keep, right?
Yeah. Project image. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things that you think would be really useful.
Weird. Excuse me. If an Elder Brain establishes a psychic link with it, the Elder Brain can form a psychic link with any creatures it can detect, too. So, you know, Elder Brains can use these guys as Wi-Fi extenders. That being said, Elder Brains are not particularly fond of these guys because they're upstarts and they have the potential to be an Elder Brain, and that means they're not directly under the control of the current Elder Brain, and it doesn't care for that.
Yeah. And I think it said something about how all Elder Brains think that they are the best Elder Brain.
Oh yeah. Of
Oh,
course.
Each Elder Brain considers itself and its desires the most important things in the multiverse.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, you know, they have a big ego for being a big brain. It's got its tentacles, it can extract brain, it's got Mind Blast. Its Mind Blast is 4d12 plus 5. Hold on a second.
It's pretty good.
Elder Brain's Mind Blast is 5d10 plus 5. Okay, so 32 to... I thought it was outright just better than the Elder Brains. I was about to say, why do they lose so much power when they become Brain? But yeah, there's a lot lower challenge rating than an Elder Brain, despite the fact they seem to have more combat capability.
Yeah.
Partially due to the fact they have legs and can move. That helps a lot.
They lose a little bit of dex when they turn into Big Brain, but they gain a lot of con.
Yeah, I mean, Big Brain is tougher than the body outside the Big Brain, but they lose 5 armor class because you can't put a breastplate on a brain. It ain't got no breast.
Maybe you mentioned this and I just wasn't paying attention, but it's interesting to me that the Elder Brain's spellcasting ability is intelligence, but its highest stat is actually charisma.
I mean, I did not mention that, but they're very charismatic.
They're super charismatic. That squishy gray brain, the most charismatic thing I've ever seen in my life.
That charisma comes down to its narcissism and ego, and it just thinks it's so great, because you can think you're so great that your charisma's high. Because if you just think anything hard enough, that's kind of what charisma is, right?
Sure, yeah.
It's just your ability
Hugh Jackman
to...
is an amazing actor because he believes he's the most handsome man on the planet.
Charisma's kind of a weird stat, because what determines...
I like to think that it's 80% looks, 20% personality. So this Elder Brain is just sexy AF.
You could find an Elder Brain with more charisma if it was the smoothest Elder Brain. Its intelligence far lower, but its charisma far higher. It's a perfectly smooth.
He's so
brain.
sleek, shiny.
The smoothest
Gorgeous.
Elder. I want you. Too bad I've already used them in campaign. I would have you guys I'm gonna do a one shot one day where you guys stumble across an enclave of Mind Flayers of the smooth Elder Brain, and just like they're really like low.
All the Mind Flayers walk around drooling all the time.
They're lower challenge rating Mind Flayers, and it's just the cult of the smooth Elder Brain. Oh God, I love that. I'm gonna have to use that. I'm gonna stow that away for.
I just watched What's Eating Gilbert Grape today, and so I like to imagine that all the mind flayers under control of the Smooth Brain are just Arnie, Leo DiCaprio's character in What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
I also like the idea of once they get 5 miles away and are no longer under its influence, the mind flayer's like, wait a second.
That was stupid as fuck. Why were we doing that?
But when they go back to confront the Elder Brain, they're immediately back under its control. And they just
Yeah, we should say something, really. Everyone, let's sign a petition. What are we
Alright,
doing?
so
I don't know.
I'm a huge fan of the Cult of the Smooth Brain.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
That's
to
pretty
do
good.
something with that. But yeah, these are. There's one more thing that we discussed when we talked about beholders, and that's the mind witness, which is what happens when you put a tadpole inside a beholder. First, you have to.
Ooh.
I forget the exact wording, but you have to incapacitate a beholder, which seems difficult. But these guys are just telepathic hubs. They are just network hubs. It can share a message with up to 7 other
Wild.
creatures within 600 feet of it that it can see. And it can see lots because it has lots of eyeballs.
What's
these-
the save to incapacitate for these guys?
These guys don't have a incapacity.
Or to incapacitate from
It's
Mind
15
Flayer
for
or
Mind
whatever.
Flayer. 15 for the standard Mind Blast. 17
it's
for the
int,
Lithorid.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, the beholder has a plus 8 to its int saves. So I guess it could be done.
What size is the beholder?
They are large.
Okay, so it can be grappled by this thing. But then again, I don't think a Mind Flayer's mouth can really... Oh no, I'm sorry. This is not an act of it eating its brain. This is Ceramorphosis. So it's putting a tadpole in it.
Yeah.
So you'd have to... And the process of Ceramorphosis takes some time. So you have to keep this thing pinned down until... I think it takes... Was it 1d4 days or whatever for the process to complete? So sometime.
Rendered docile by a blast of sonic power. Inserted into the cranium. Over the course of a week.
Yeah.
The humanoid body changes form. So yeah, I'm assuming it's roughly the same time frame for a beholder. Maybe longer.
Yeah. So they have to keep that beholder docile for a week to make one of these things that are essentially just shitty beholders that work as network hubs. And they're only a network hub out to 600 feet, which isn't even that far.
Yeah. Considering that the Elder Brain is 5 miles,
Yeah,
600 feet
the
is a pretty
Lithorid's 2
laughably small
miles.
distance.
And also, like, you can't send these guys over the surface to work as a network hub. They have to be underground because if a person sees this, they're like, "Nuh-uh, not
Yeah.
today."
Yeah, honestly, I think most people, if they saw this, would be more concerned than if they saw a giant brain.
Yeah,
Because the giant brain is at least humanoid. You'd be like, oh shit, there was a giant person that lost their brain. Oh no, we should help him.
yeah.
If you see this, you're like, well, I guess this is where we die.
This is how it ends. I shouldn't have drank all that turpentine. But it's got tentacles. It can grapple people and stun them with its grappling tentacles. And it's got eye rays that are just, I think, a weaker version of the Beholder's eye rays. Yeah, they're all DC 13. It can give a creature disadvantage on attack rolls for 1 minute. Fear a creature. Deal some psychic damage. Slow. Stun. Or use telekinesis. So it doesn't even have the good death rays. Which, to be fair, Mind Flayers wouldn't want it to have a disintegration ray because they probably don't want it disintegrating all their precious brains.
Yeah. We actually need those.
Yeah, it also doesn't have a mouth anymore, which I don't care for. I don't like that. This picture's
Just a
bad.
milky eye.
I don't like the look at this.
It's very unpleasant. Go back to the Kuatoa.
Yeah. Oh no, I forgot to spell Kuatoa. Is it O-U? Is it U-O?
UO.
Kuotoa. Hell yeah. Yeah, it looks blind. It does look blind because it's got the milky eye and everything, but it can see. Yeah.
I'm gonna make that my avatar of everything I do from now on.
He's loving it.
It's amazing.
He's living his best life. But now we're gonna get into what I think is super awesome about Mind Flayers. A true Mind Flayer.
Yeah, here we go.
This is what Mind Flayers look like when they don't have a host.
Where does it even talk about this? Is this in the monster manual? I've got
This isn't Volos. It's
under.
it's like 2 pages past the end of the Mind Flayer stuff. It's in its
Oh,
own
it's
section.
not in the. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is a big worm, and when I say big, I mean this is a full-sized dude. This is a Gargantuan Worm that is literally the size of a great purple worm. In fact, could be confused for a purple worm if it weren't for the face. And this is what all those tadpoles would turn into if left to their own devices. When the tadpole's in a pool, let's say you killed the Elder Brain and wiped out a Mind Flayer colony but didn't kill all the tadpoles in the pool, because why would you bother? This is what happens. The tadpoles cannibalize until one is the biggest and strongest tadpole, and it emerges as the Neothelid?
I get why Mind Flayers hate them, because these things have clearly developed a taste for Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
It's that scene from the Bond movie, The Rats.
So, another interesting thing about these, look at their intelligence score. Let me show it for you. Their intelligence is only 3, meaning Mind Flayers and the Elder Brain and Lithorid can't detect these things with creature sense. So there's no way for them to know this thing is coming. However, it has creature sense.
Yikes.
So it can detect them. It's aware of the presence of all creatures within 1 mile that have an intelligence score of 4 or higher. It knows distance and direction. It has.
Oh god.
It has feeble mind
no.
and telekinesis and confusion, which the Elder Brain don't. It can levitate, and it's gargantuan, so it's just a fucking giant floating worm boy. I don't know why it has levitate. I don't know under what circumstances it would use. I guess it can't burrow or fly or anything. It's horrifying to imagine this guy just floating through the sky slowly.
And because levitate only lets you go up 20 feet, right?
So here's the thing. One creature or loose object you choose, you can see, rises vertically up to 20 feet and remains suspended for the duration. The spell can levitate targets at way up to 500 pounds. Wait a second. It can't levitate itself.
Yeah, this thing is levitating other things. It's just lazy. It's levitating its food into its own mouth.
Yeah, it can't levitate itself because I'm assuming this gargantuan worm weighs more than 500 pounds. So I guess if it's hunting something, it levitates it so that thing can't flee away.
Yeah, or this thing is hollow. It's just a fucking condom with teeth.
That's a different monster entirely. So the target can move only by pushing or pulling against a fixed object or surface within reach, which allows it to move as if it were climbing. So that's still half speed in most cases. You can change the target's altitude on your turn. So I guess it uses this to slow down and catch targets. If it's hunting something, it just grabs it and then floats it so it can snag them. And other Mind Flayers can't do that to this because it weighs more than 500 pounds. Confusion, feeble mind. Like hitting a Mind Flayer with feeble mind is the worst thing that could happen to them.
Yep.
Its DC save is 16 too, which is higher than a regular Mind Flayer save. And it's wisdom, not intelligence based. because these things are dumb as fuck. No dex, because they're huge. Very high strength, high con, a little bit of charisma. They're kind of cute.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, I might
Yeah,
swipe right.
they can persuade, you know.
Then they have magic resistance because they've got the same goop on them that the Mindflayers do. Then Tentacles, plus 13 to hit, 15-foot range, 3d8 plus 8 bludgeoning damage, plus 3d8 psychic damage. If the target's larger, smaller, has to succeed a DC 18 strength save, which Mindflayers are not good at it, or be swallowed. While swallowed, the creature is blinded and restrained, and then takes 10d6 acid damage at the start of each of the Neolithid's turns. If it takes 30 damage or more in a single turn from a creature inside it, it has to succeed a con save or vomit some out. And also it has acid breath. 60-foot cone, instead of doing a mind blast, it just spews 10d6 worth of acid damage out on everyone. So yeah, Mindflayers hate these things because they're afraid of them. Because these things are kind of really good at hunting Mindflayers. Also, their saving throws is a total of +1 to intelligence. Despite the fact they have an intelligence of 3, they still get some bonus on int saves.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. So, Mindflayers do not want to let a tadpole get too big. If they notice a tadpole gets larger than like the palm of their hand, they just kill it. Because they don't want this thing to happen. Oh wait, there's a little pronunciation bubble. Neothalid. So that means the other guy must be... I figure out how to pronounce this once and all. Thank you, Matt Mercer. Lithorid.
Lithorid. Alright.
That's what Matt Mercer says. That's what I'm going to believe.
I'm inclined to believe him.
Yeah. So, yeah. These guys... Nope. No, not now. Neo. God, I wish I could spell. These guys are what I think is the coolest thing about Mind Flayers, because this is what a true Mind Flayer looks like. This is what a true Illithid is. Without a host.
Found them with teeth.
Yeah, without a host, you just let these eggs turn into tadpoles and grow on their own. This is what they are. Meaning, at one point, way back in their history, you know, before they were taking over races and everything, this is just what they were.
And what they were. And then
at some point, a tadpole got into a creature and ate its brain and became what we know Mind Flayers as today. But these were just Mind Flayers.
Yeah.
Which I think is dope. I like the fact that they
cool.
really took back their species when they, you know, gained a brain. Instead of just being this giant purple worm with claws and fangs and tentacles and shit.
Yeah.
That's personally what I think is the most interesting thing about Mind Flayers, is just that this is what they are, and they disguise themselves as some intelligent super race because they don't want people to know they're actually big shitty worms.
Yeah. Oh god, our secret shame that we keep hidden is not that we're this beautiful octopus-faced humanoid that you see before you, but we're actually a giant gross purple worm.
We're the most intelligent, sophisticated life form. It's like, really? Because it looks an awful lot like you're a big shitty purple worm.
Yeah.
You know what rhymes with dope? Nope. Heather, you didn't even get to fight one of these things. They're not actually that tough, but they're very interesting. So that is the last thing about Mind Flayers I think we have in the book.
Close the book. Get it out of here.
So let's let me see if there's anything else in
My leg is falling asleep, so there's that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I don't see anything else, any other Mindflayer subtypes in this nondescript website. I definitely am not putting the site up for because I don't want it taken down again. Which is why I cropped the URL off.
Gonna keep that between us.
Yep, keep that to the DMs if you guys want it. So yeah, Mindflayers are super interesting. Despite the fact we know so much about them in this lore, and yet we know so little about them in general. It's kind of crazy. They are shy of dragons. They're probably the most D&D ass D&D monster, I'd say.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. It's like very iconic. I mean, like you didn't reference the Baldur's Gate trailer nearly as much as I expected you to.
I expected to reference it more, but I was actually going to save it to the end because I was going to tell everyone to go watch that trailer to compare it to the things we described. Because I was like, oh, if I reference it constantly, other people haven't seen it. But as Logan mentioned, if you found this interesting, go watch the Baldur's Gate 3 opening cinematic trailer, because it shows even some stuff we didn't talk about. The ships that Mindflayers use to travel between planets, the Nautiloids, I think they're called. It shows one of those. It shows the process of inserting a tadpole into a creature. It shows Mindflayers like moving around and doing cool stuff. It shows a Gith attack. It's super dope. If you thought any of this was interesting, go watch the trailer for Baldur's Gate 3, because that looks amazing, and that cinematic is very, very true to what we've learned about Mindflayers, but also super awesome. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was a very cool trailer. It makes me want to play that game.
Yes. Not sponsored. We're not getting any money for this, but that game is available on Steam right now in early access, and I think they just added the sorcerer class to the game, so it's getting there. It's not set to come out this year, but hopefully next spring we'll have it in full access. But if you want to get in on it, you can right now. I think it's just the first act of 5 acts is available to play right now, but looks super dope. I think that just about covers us for Mindflayers. Is there anything else you want to say as the last kind of thing?
Nope. I agree that Mindflayers are very dope, and I did not know the thing about the worm thing until we started talking about it. Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
Pretty neat. I will say that there's a lot of information on Mindflayers that is not in 5th edition. There are a bunch of like sub races and others, like there's a specific race that's what happens when a Mindflayer tadpole infects a lizard person. That is a lizard with 2 tentacles on its head, and it has some weird stuff going on. There's some other stuff from older editions that is really interesting, but it's not in 5th edition. I wasn't going to go drag all that stuff up because that's a lot, and I'm very lazy. So if you're interested in this, do some research, check some stuff out. Hopefully they add more stuff. I'm gonna say this right now, that way when next month Wizards of the Coast announces it, I'm leaking right now that Wizards of the Coast is going to announce a book that expands on Mindflayer lore and Spelljammer stuff early next year. 93% chance
it happens.
And because I said it, and I don't have that information here to discuss, it's gonna happen, because that's what happens whenever I make a prediction. Because Wizards does everything they can to spite me.
It's true.
Alright, so we're going to wrap up the stream here. I'm just going to give you guys a quick mention of what's happening the rest of the week. Tomorrow, I'm going to stream something. I might do Darkest Dungeon 2. We'll see. I'm definitely going to do something. I haven't decided what yet. Thursday, Wizards of the Coast is going to spite me with Magic the Gathering Crimson Vow coming out, the new Magic the Gathering set. I'm going to play some draft into that, and we're going to see how Wizards continues to spite me by somehow always shuffling every land I have to the top or bottom of my deck. They shuffle my deck, and then they put the land on top or bottom every time. So we'll deal with that when we deal with that. And then I might be doing, depending on if I can get my hands on a capture card, I might be doing a weekend stream of some point of Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the Switch.
Woo!
Yeah, it's I'm a huge SMT fan, and I'm very excited for SMT 5. And if you're a fan too, what a weird coincidence you'd be a fan of D&D and SMT. Like, those things aren't really... But if you're a fan of both, like me, I mean, that's great. You're going to enjoy it.
God, you found the perfect place.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
what a weird,
home.
Yeah, what a weird split. So yeah, join me for that. I will let you guys know in the Discord when I have more information about that. If you're watching this on YouTube, check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/solo_crusader. If you're watching on Twitch Live, which I think is only you, Heather, and Ben, you guys are welcome to check out the VOD on YouTube, where I also have a full Subnautica 2 LP and some other miscellaneous stuff thrown in. And if you're on either, you can hit up my Discord if you want to play more games or know more information about what I do. I post to Discord constantly, so if you want to know anything about anything, check out Discord. Alright guys, you have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Bye-bye, folks.
Follow button.
Oh yeah, do that too. Follow.